Hello, thank you for joining us and welcome to the fourth in our webinar series, Decodable Books, Phonemic Awareness. Luckily today I am joined by Jill Lauren, the founder and owner of Whole Phonics. She, alongside myself and some of the authors that you'll see in the presentation today, realized the need for kids to have books that they were engaged and interested in and could use for comprehension, not just silly stories, while applying the skills that they had learned in their class. So I'm very grateful to have Jill. You want to say hi, Jill?
Hello, I'm grateful to be here. I love our sisterhood, the Decodable Tech Sisterhood. We're all supporting each other to make sure that kids get the books they need early on.
And we'll get to hear from Jill in just a moment. We're going to get started just really quickly because phonemic awareness has gotten a lot of needed attention recently and in the last couple of years. But really, just to go over, phonemic awareness is a critical component of early education, and it's one that uh, is often under attended to, especially in a more an explicit way. I know that as a teacher myself, I used to do little activities here and there as I kind of saw them, but just ensuring that all our kids have all of these skills. From Of Hard Words by and Straw Men, Louisa Moats, she talks about it, the definition being this awareness of sound. So understanding that the words that we speak are made up of sounds that we will then see in text. Um, Being able to easily manipulate those sounds. This has to do with multiple skills in early foundational literacy, with writing. Being able to take a word and move the sounds around helps us in so many different areas, as well as understanding the link between speech and our print. So kids saying words and then being able to understand that those are then the words that we see in our books. You'll see it a lot of the times with the alphabet, as kids are singing in it and it sounds like one thing: A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, K. And when kids start to understand that each one of these is a separate entity, it's the same thing with this speech and print, is understanding that each word that comes out of your mouth is then in a text. These are all connected. So the idea that phonemic awareness and the science isn't complete on this. So we're starting to understand kind of how much we need. We don't, there's not a definitive answer, but we do know that it's involved in decoding and encoding. So it's involved in reading and writing, which is why it's so important that we focus on having all kids not have any gaps in these skills. The basic parts of this are phoneme isolation, blending, segmenting, and manipulating. Uh, all of these having various parts, but there's also this piece at the beginning, this auditory discrimination. Now, this comes before you are reading in a decodable book, but I just think it's worth mentioning because we oftentimes don't focus on, can kids actually hear it? Can they actually hear the differences in words? It shocked me at first when I would do activities with kids like, do you hear the same word or a different word? Rot, rod. And kids might hear the same thing. So we need to help them to get ready, to get their ears ready. And you're going to hear a little bit about this piece about getting our ears ready and warmed up when Jill discusses how to use these in a lesson. Phoneme isolation is understanding that there are specific sounds within the word and which one am I looking for. So this could be initial, medial, or final, so beginning, middle, and end. With the word bus, I might say, what do you hear at the beginning? What sound starts the word bus? And a child would then b, b. But if I say, what do you hear in the middle? What sound do you hear is the vowel sound? Ah. So it's being able to isolate one specific sound within a word. Blending is taking all of these sounds that you know separately and putting them together. There is a jump that comes from knowing the sounds of letters or knowing your phonics and then being able to blend those sounds together. So sometimes we find that kids who are really great at phonics are still struggling when they get to actual reading of a book because they're having trouble putting those sounds together, which is why this piece is important. So d, ah, g. But we still need to be able to say dog and put those sounds together. Now, this is even with higher level phonics. So sometimes a quick practice of that at a higher level as kids are learning various sounds and sound spelling. So k or n, corn, understanding how to put those sounds together effectively to make a word. Segmenting is the reverse. So we're taking things apart. We're putting it into segments. We're taking the sounds from one word and we're dividing it up into the specific phonemes or the different sounds. The word sun, s, n. Why this is important is because eventually we need to be able to take the words that we're speaking and then use our knowledge of spelling and spelling patterns and write those words. A lot of the time in phonetic spelling, you'll see a child write something like SN for the word sun. Well, it's because they're not listening to every single sound that's in a word, which is why this can be so vital to our the writing piece with our kids. It's also of note that blending and segmenting both have these three progression levels. We start with the syllable level. So in a compound word, that might be two words, air, plane, or it could be multiple syllables in a multi-syllabic word. So lobster, and how to break that apart. This helps with reading in the sense that kids can chunk longer words to read with greater ease. When there's a very long word, sometimes dividing it into pieces makes it a lot more simple. Onset and rhyme. Onset is the beginning part of a word. So it's the letters that come before the vowel in a, let's say, in one syllable. So moon, is the onset, and the rhyme is the vowel and the ending, un. So bath, ath. So being able to put these together is kind of a very easy way to start blending. I might say to a child, I'm going to give you two parts of a word and I want you to put it together. What do we get? Un. It's just two. Put it together. Moon. And it helps children to start to scaffold or to build in that progressive way up to our individual phonemes. So then with a word like moon, ooh, I have three sounds and kids have to put it together or take it apart and they have to deconstruct it in order to write it or use it in another form. Now, manipulating is a higher level form of phonemic awareness. This really comes into play, especially when kids are writing, because if you know specific words and patterns and you can build specific words or strings of those letters or phonic structures, then you can build others or pull them apart. So adding, deleting, or substituting. Just really quickly, adding is like taking the word car and adding d to the end. You would get card. Deleting would be the reverse. So card, take away d, car. Then substituting would be something like taking card and substituting d for t, cart. That's just a simple explanation. So why, what do decodable books have to do with phonemic awareness? I will say this, and then I'm going to turn it over to Jill on this next slide. But with phonemic awareness, a lot of us don't have programs in our classroom or something that's integrated with the actual reading, just like phonics actually applies to reading. And if we keep it separated, it becomes abstract. Phonemic awareness can directly apply to what kids are doing in their reading instruction. And so having ways to practice that is so important. When we're looking at Scarborough's reading rope, obviously, this bottom part doesn't work without the top part. Like we've said before in webinars before this one, if you don't have meanings or language comprehension, it's really difficult because then it's just sounds that you're saying. We need to be able to connect it to meaning. But today we're really going to be focusing on this bottom piece, the phonological awareness and decoding and spelling. So, and encoding and how that all works together.
So nice to see everybody here on a summer afternoon. My goal, and thank you, Elise, and thanks for the opportunity to be here. And I think this is probably one of the most important moments of teaching reading. How do you go from children being able to manipulate and play with sounds auditorily, which is a lot of what they do in pre-K and the beginning of K, to actually reading words? And I'm going to show you the steps that I take actually to help them learn how to read the words that they'll need to read in the very first book of the Whole Phonics series, which is called Max. And just to let you know, there are only 8 sounds that are covered in that book. So as we proceed with this, there's 3 concepts that I'm going to assume you as teachers will have taught by the time you get to this component of your instruction. Your students will know what is a word. They'll have been taught that, and by the way, why would you even teach that? In the same way that Elise was talking about, like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, LMNOP, like LMNOP is a letter. No, it's not. They eventually learn that that song is comprised of individual letters that they're going to learn. The same thing when you think about the discourse, our speech, it's just coming out in a stream. So children really need to learn, like, yes, this is a glass. Glass is a word. Or, this is a phone. Phone is a word. And then eventually you're going to be teaching them words are made up of sounds. And of course, one of the best ways to do that is to use their names. It's concrete, or something that they love, like, a doll. Let's say a doll starts with doll, doll, just so they start to understand, oh, these are words and these words have sounds. And what's amazing is with just 5 sounds, and we're going to be concentrating on the the s, the a, the t, and the those 5 sounds. With just 5 sounds, we can start teaching children how to blend so that they can read words. Because of course, when they're first learning how to read, learning how to blend is it's like the fire starter for becoming a reader. It's what our friend Professor DeHaan talks about, like the brain's letterbox. This is where we start to learn our sounds. We start to store them in our letterbox. We start to associate those sounds with words in our spoken language. And then we eventually put what we know about sounds and attach it to the grapheme. So I'm going to show you how we do that with phonemic awareness, and how we connect it directly to what we're reading. And that is probably the most important thing I can tell you, is that I'm going to show you how to connect your phonemic awareness lessons to what's being read. So it's in other words, the activity is super purposeful. So I start with the assumption that I'm going to be talking to children about blending, but what does blending even mean? And I'm going to say to them, words are made up of parts, and I'm going to play a game with you where I'm going to tell you parts of a word, and let's see if you can guess what it is. So of course, this first one is snow man, and then they'll say snowman. Don't go to the next slide yet. Then I'm going to say rainbow, and they're going to say, got it. Then I'm going to get it's going to get a little harder. And I'll do this a couple times until I see that they really get it. And then I'm going to go to concrete words with 3 parts. So because why would I do 3 parts? Because the words we're going to read mostly have 3 sounds. So I want them to see that they can blend something that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. So I'll go on and I'll say, okay, I'm going to give you a word that's a little trickier because you're so good at those. The next word, umbrella. What did I say? Umbrella. Now, by the way, as I do this, I'm going to start to do this motion, which I'm hoping for you is looking as if it's from left to right. I want children to get used to seeing me do this, because it means I'm going to ask them to blend, because I don't want to say, okay, I'm going to tell you parts. You tell me what you hear. Umbrella. What do you hear? I'm now interrupting what I told them with a question. I want it to be as pure as possible. So umbrella. And then they respond. So this is a cue to respond and tell me what they've heard. And finally, elephant. Elephant. Okay. Once I see that they're comfortable, and by the way, I'm often using blocks during this time period to show them, because I'll be using blocks when I'm doing the phonemic awareness activities, So, you know, I would be moving that elephant with the blocks, and they could have the blocks in front of them and doing the same thing themselves. And we're repeating that so they understand what we mean by listening to sounds, listening to the parts of the word and building these words right prior to when we move that into sound. So again, I've done that just to make the activity concrete for kids so they understand what I'm going to then do with these abstract sounds. Okay, so now we're going to move on. And basically, this is it. I'm going to show you how I teach children how to blend. And these are the only 5 sounds we're going to be learning. So in the beginning, everybody is going to have blocks, or I might first hold off on the blocks and just have them either on, you know, a smart board, or if I'm sitting at a small group, typically a small group, and I'm just going to say to them, now you've learned how to listen to the parts of words. Now we're going to listen to sounds within a word. And the cool thing about what we're going to do today is once I show you how to do this, then I'm going to show you how to read those words. Like today, you're going to be reading words. And look at this big deal over it. You know, confetti falls from the sky because I think this is the biggest moment of a child's like reading history, the first time they can read words. So I'm going to say to them, we go to the next slide, and I'm going to show them, I'm going to tell you the sounds of sat. So this is the direct instruction part. I'm going to say, listen, I'm teaching you how to say the word sat sound by sound. Here we go. And then I'm going to be moving those blocks, and I'll show them s, a, t. And then I'm going to go to the next block, next slide, and I'm just going to go like this so they know. I'll do it again, sat, and then I'll go like this, and then next slide, they're going to tell me they heard sat. Okay, now I'm going to say to them, okay, now you're going to use your ears, because we need our ears when we read, because when we read, we're looking at letters and we're listening to what we say. So you're going to use your ears, and I'm going to tell you a word, and you're going to tell me what you hear. Ready? Ah, t. I'm going to wait for them to tell me, and hopefully they get it right. And if they don't, we're going to do it again. And now they're going to start to move those blocks with me. Okay, let's go on to the next word, which is ah. And what did I'm not going to say, what did I say? And either everyone has little pictures in front of them and they're going to point to them, or they'll point to it on the smart board. But I like to have, individualized. If I have a group of 6, I'll just have that picture right in front, and they could just, put their finger on it. I can then ask one child or another child, tell me that word. What did I just say? We can do it together as a group. Okay. So now I'm going to take those pictures, sat, mat, and fat, and one more, which you'll see in a moment. And I'm going to tell my students, I'm going to hold those 4 cards in my hand, and I'm going to say, okay, now you did so well with that. I'm going to say a word, and we're going to see if you can guess the word I have in my hand. Okay. If you guess it, you get to keep it. But if you don't guess it, I'm going to keep it. Let's see if the kids can beat me, because they love playing kids against the teacher and they love seeing me lose. So the first word is ah. Hold on one second.
We were close.
Oh, I forgot about our little friend. Okay, before we even do that, sorry everybody, we're going back a second. I'm also going to tell them, let's go back to, yes, perfect. I'm going to say, oh, and by the way, I'm going to introduce you to someone who's going to be in our book. And his name is And here he is, Sam. You're going to meet him in the book we're reading. Okay, next. Now I'm playing, thank you, Elise. Now I'm playing my game with the 4 cards, okay? And the first word is, what? And if they all say Matt and I show them my card, they get to keep it. But there too, I can have them, as I say it, I can have them just copy me. And they could do at. And we do it all together. At. You'll see the degree of repetition that's needed for your own group. Okay, so the next word, at. Yep, good job. Next word, at. Holding them in my card. Yep, good. The card's in my hand. And finally, now I'm going to say and they're going to say, yep, good, Sam. All right, now here comes the fun, and we're making a big deal of this. Okay, you did so well with that. Now we're going to start looking at, we're going to start reading those words all by ourselves. You've done such a good job at listening to them. Now let's read them. And so I'll have little tiles or blocks with letters on them. It's whatever you have handy, like just regular index cards cut up, but everyone will have their own. And what I'll say is, okay, let's build a word. We're going to build, and I will show them first. Okay, we're going to build the word, and we're going to move that card. And then we're going to sweep it. That. Okay, so I would end up doing that again, and I would go through that whole thing again, and I would say, let's do it so they can get the practice in. So that's good. So now we go on, and now I'm going to have them start to move it on their own, and they're going to start to say the sounds. Now, think about what we've done here so far. There's so much repetition. They've heard it once. They've heard it twice. We only have 4 pictures. The goal here is to take a difficult task, which is blending. It's difficult for many kids, and to build success with it, which is why I'm also keeping these pictures here and not removing them yet. Like when we're first doing this, we really want to make this like a fun and successful experience. Okay, so now we can go on. And the next word, at. You're going to be building that together, sat. And finally, now the next one, I'm going to say, oh, one of the pictures is covered. Let's see what's under the cover. Let's see if you can read this and figure it out all by yourself. We have and they'll have those cards. You got it. Whoop, got it right. It's Sam. Okay, now we've just done the blending piece. So this may be something that you could do in a day. Maybe you can add this piece on, or maybe you wait till the next day. But I'm going to say, and I'm going to tell my students, you did such a good job at reading those words. I bet you can build them yourselves, which of course is the beginning of spelling and coding. But I need to make it successful, and we want to limit the choices at this time. So I'm only going to give them the 3 sounds they need to build that word. And I'm going to show them, okay, let's listen to this word Matt. What's our first sound? And they're going to move. What comes next? At. And then we're doing that together. Just again, practice building the success in this really challenging new skill. Here we have Anne. What did she do? She sat. You got it. And then finally, well, 2 more. Here's our friend. What's his name? Sam. What's the first sound? And this may be a time where I'm introducing the concept of finger spelling, which actually helps them as they organize what they're hearing and go sound by sound. And then finally, we have the last word, which is at, or our friend the fat cat. Now, the last thing I'm going to share is that these words came directly out of the decodable text. So the lesson is really tight. The sounds that we're practicing for phonemic awareness are the words that the sounds that we use to read words. So the phonemic awareness directly leads to reading words, which then directly leads to reading the decodable text. So, and you can see on the next page too, the world's most overused sentence, the fat cat sat at the mat. Just here's our version of using it, but there are the words. And Sam was on the other page, but there are the words that we just practiced, which of course, now we're going to read it in context. Now we're going to get to think about those words and what they mean. And we're going to get to think about story structure, but we're going to have the joy of reading our first book. We've had all this warm up. So reading the first book should be an exercise in practicing what was just learned rather than an exercise in frustration because it was a cold read and they had no idea how to blend or they didn't know their sounds. So now you've done everything needed to like cue them up for success. And if there's any questions about what I did, please feel free to email me at this email address. And thank you, Elise. This is one of my absolute favorite things to do as a teacher, so it's a joy for me to share it with your audience. So thank you.
I'm going to move back over here. And because Jill did such a great job explaining how she would do this right before she used a decodable book, really, how can we use decodable books to support phonemic awareness? And she showed you a great lesson that goes along with it. I love that she broke it down into pieces so you can really see how it's done and the language she would use and even how she would get kids excited about doing that. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you a menu of options, really tangible, applicable ways that we can explicitly work on phonemic awareness so that kids are warming themselves up right before they they go into reading. So like Jill said, not a cold read. Because when we focus on doing various activities within phonemic awareness, the pieces that we need to read, to construct, to deconstruct, all of the work that we need to do with words, whether it be with reading or writing, we're explicitly teaching kids those skills instead of just hoping that they pick them up as we go. So I'm going to show you a couple activities so that you walk away from here having some things to do. And this menu will be available for you on our webpage when it goes live tomorrow. So with phoneme isolation, this game is called Wrong Sound. Basically taking a book, again, like Jill said, we're using these books that have collections of words that follow the specific phonics that we're working with. So maybe before I use this book by Align Decodables, it has a lot of short U in it. I might say, we're looking for the sound today. And I might then read words. Gus, does it have the sound? Again, like Jill said, a great way to do it is to have them do motion so that you're not asking something after. Gus. On. Wrong sound. Quick activity to kind of warm them up to listen. You can even do it further along. Now, I realize that there is a time and a place for phonemic awareness, but kids won't have to stop writing words. So they still need to be able to decipher sounds no matter how much, even as the phonics structures get a little more difficult. So like using the Meg and Greg books to do shh, we're looking for words that have shh. They can do this in a partner activity. I'm going to give you 60 seconds to sit with your partner. You're going to take turns reading a word. You can pick anyone off the page, and your partner then has to say, or depending on if they hear the sh sound. So fish, just. Quick activity to have them listening for that specific sound. I think one of the things that we do neglect is that some kids, as they go further along, are still struggling with this piece of listening. And so by doing tiny activities like these right before they're reading, we're ensuring that all kids have all of these skills. Find five. So I have a class that does this. So these activities, I should say, are from the daily dues from Express Readers, but this one is find five. They have to find 5 things that have a specific sound. By using the Dog on a Log books, I'm going to say, we're going to find 5 words that have Everybody say it, We're going to listen for those words. So then I would say words, tad, and kids would just put their finger up if they hear that sound. The, ram, ran, to, tag, dad. We found 5. Now you can have them again, do it as a partner activity. So go ahead and read a word. And as soon as you found 5, the activity is over. So one child will read a word. They might be looking for awe, like in this book, shells, up, got. I found one, pond, and so on and so on. Our next activity is can you hear it? Real quick activity. So in can you hear it in Express Readers, we do it in a lot of ways. You can say, can you hear this sound? And then give them that specific sound. And if they hear it, put their hands on their head. If they don't, keep their hands down or put them on their shoulders. Can you hear it can be quickly done like that. We can also immediately connect it to the phonics. So I might give them 2 index cards. One has an E on it if we're looking for eh, and one has an X on it or a do not enter sign. So I'll call out words or I'll have another one of the students in the group call out words. Again, we're connecting more because one child is reading. Gets. Do you hear eh? Gets. And kids would put their hand there, or if they do, because that's the sound we're looking for, hat. Nope. Pen. Yeah. Now, again, like I said, sometimes as kids get older, we neglect to notice that this kind of disconnect is happening. Maybe their spelling is suffering. So by doing these little activities before we read, we can even do it at a little bit of a higher level. Now, the simple words books still have a pretty basic phonics structure, but this is obviously for older children as there becomes more text and a deeper storyline that goes along with it. Not just deeper, but more complex for an older crowd. I would work, maybe I'm working on ending sounds to make sure that those kids are hearing, again, either 2 index cards, and I can connect it immediately to the phonics. What do you hear at the end? Do you hear t or d? Not. Last. Glad. And we're doing a quick check with them. Blends buckets. This is a fun one. Now this is just a higher form of sound sorting. So quickly sounding using the phonics structure that we're doing so that I know that the kids are actually hearing it in the words that are being said. But this also further connects it. So it's a version of sorting by sound, but it involves the spelling. And again, a decodable book based on your scope and sequence is a great resource to use because you have a collection of the words that you're looking to use. So I might take this book from Phonics Book and it has a lot of ending blends in it. So I'll start looking, collecting whether I have kids point them out. Maybe they're looking through and finding words with ending blendings and I'm writing it down or I'm writing them on index cards. I quickly have a list of words that have these ending blends in them. Then I go back to my blends buckets. Now, maybe it's just pieces of paper that have these spellings on them. Maybe it's actual cups that have the spelling on the side. I love using those solo cups with a permanent marker. So I've got the spelling on there, and then I will read out a word out loud. So I'm not necessarily showing it to them. A lot of the times we will see those activities where you are sorting groups of words by their spelling. I think not to say that this is a bad activity, but we're ignoring the fact that we also want them listening for those sounds. So mend, I would say it out loud and they would decide where it went. We could put it in the correct bucket. Test. Well, it doesn't have m or nd. It has other. And that's a great way to do things too. A little catch-all. Limps. As you can see, so on and so on, we'll put all of the words into the correct place. Now I can have the words written, so eventually they do see where that spelling matches up, but I want them listening for it as well. This is long or short. It has to do with when we make that vowel switch. Sometimes listening for that long or that short, it helps with kids identify when they need to use the specific spellings because it is really tricky to switch when we're going from those words with the 5 vowel sounds that they know and they've worked with in reading, and then they're moving into the long or short. Phonics or a decodable book is a great place to find lots of these words. This is a nice easy one. We have them do short or long. So I might call out a word, or I would have another child call out a word. Pride. They say long. Smile. Big. Now I could use this for all different kinds of vowels as well. It doesn't just have to be for long I, although this this book focuses on long I, so it's a good place to then practice the difference between I and I. But I can use any short vowel or long vowel and have kids practicing whether it's long or short. This is a great way to do it, especially in partners, because the Orca 2 Read books has this multi-level in it. So it's kids at different various levels. This isn't to say that some kids still need to practice listening for specific sounds. Um, so I might just have the kids calling out words to each other. Again, this 60-second or even 30-second activity that they can do. So they're finding the words and deciding whether it's short or long. Rings of R. This again is to show you that we can do this at a higher level. When the kids learn R controlled vowels, we've got these kind of higher level spellings, but we still need to decide which one of those spelling or which one of those sounds is actually in it. Then we'll learn our spelling rules about all the ways that we can spell or R, but we have to identify what those are first. In Express Readers, we have 3 different books that focus on it, and you can use obviously any book that focuses on these specific spellings. Great part about decodable books is that you can find this, like using the Meg and Greg. I might ask kids to find words for me that have the R sound in it here, and I would write them down on my list. Then I might use the surfing book from phonics books and have them find words that have the sound in it. Doesn't matter how it's spelled yet. Then here we go with Snakes in a Storm, have them find that or sound, and we put it here. Or I can already come with this set of words, and then I would read them out loud and we would decide where they went. So we can have it spelled on a card, but I would start by which one of these sounds do you hear? You know, a really fun one is to use hula hoops. Makes for a bigger activity, a little more movement. Even as our kids get older, they can still have fun with these phonics. It doesn't have to be dry. I know Jill agrees with me on that. Blending. So as Jill was saying, this is the piece that really starts to strike in our kids how to read. And a lot of kids do have trouble with this. So this is a great activity to do really quickly. I would suggest doing what Jill says, but you know, as we go into it a bit more, there might be you just want to do a really quick activity. So what's the word? I would say not. And now I have a book full of words that I can use specifically for this. So I can do it not, and the kids then tell me what the word is. Jill's, oh, I'm doing it the wrong way. No? Which way do you see it? But then I can also have them go with another child. This adds in this segmentation for another child. So I'll give you the book and I'll say, okay, go with your partner. You're going to pick a word and I want you to pull it apart in its sounds and your partner has to guess. So add, and their partner had. Now you want to be watching over these so that you're also listening in, but it's a great way to listen in on whether or not they're segmenting. Bounce and blend is a really fun game. It's a really easy activity to do. I would suggest doing it in a line, waiting to go into the cafeteria, but it's also a fun activity. Let's say you want to get your kids up for a second. I'm going to say the sounds. And again, we can do this in a partner activity using a decodable book once we've practiced. But I'm going to say the sounds of a word and you're going to bounce it. So you're going to bounce it like you bounce a basketball. Now I want you to start going faster. We're going to mesh it together. And I always have them shoot for the hoop when they make the word run. So again, they can do it with a partner, and then the partner is also segmenting to give them the sound so that they have to put it together. Road reading is a great way to just have our kids especially be working on continuous blending. So really putting the sounds together instead of just stop saying each of the sounds that's involved in a word. So with road reading, you can use a toy car. They can make their hand be the car. Great one is that road tape, comes right off tables, but it's really easy to lay down and have kids doing it across. And they just do the action as they're saying the sounds. So hum, helping to kind of show what the activity of blending is and how we're smoothly putting it together. Now you're going to have sounds that are stop sounds or continuous sounds. Is a stop sound because it's not one that you can draw out. A continuous sound is one you can draw out. In this word, the continuous sound, the continuous sound is ah, because we can say t, app. By pulling those sounds out and using road reading or something where they're moving along, it helps us to elongate the sounds that they can elongate so that they can blend more easily. Ought. They went very fast, but you get the idea. Segmenting. So pulling the sounds apart. A great game is how many sounds. So here's a Whole Phonics book. Let's put on a skit. This has more. This has digraphs and blends in it. A great one for blends. As I was looking through it, so I might say a word from it. Skits, and kids are saying the sounds in it. S, k, it, s. And we have 5 sounds. Another way to do this is with our poppets. This is a great way because not only are we getting a little bit of um, a proprioceptive, a feeling while we're doing it, but we're also visually being able to see how many sounds are in something. So st, ak, and kids are then popping as they go st, ak. Here's a Rex Runs Off book, again using the how many sounds, but this time when we do it, est, we're also going to use bingo chips or bingo markers or blocks or something. Jill showed a great way to do it with her blocks, but there's lots of different materials you can use to do it. And so even in a book that is meant for older kids, by having our kids do this, we're helping their chances at being able to hear and spell as well. And we know that the reading and the spelling go together and in solidifying those letter patterns and those letter structures. So in their letter box, they're keeping these words for easier reading of longer and harder words as they go. Stomp it. This is a really fun one. If you get your kids up, pick a word. Maybe you have one child who's the caller and they're reading a word, and then the other kids, k, a, b, and they're stomping out the sounds. You might not be able to be up and moving around like that. We do pounding. Obviously, you might need the rules of not doing it so hard. Now, this is an interesting one because I picked this and then thought, ooh, little, because I say little. And this is an important place to say that I realize we might say a word a little bit differently, but helping our kids to see that the way that it was pronounced in the way that it was written, like little. Now I say little, but we can say those words so kids can pull the sounds apart. I realize it's not the speaking is done differently, but it, or lived, l, I, v, d. This is important because as kids learn, they'll learn later that d can be one spelling for ed. Then there's ed, or one way one way that we sound the sound for the spelling ed. So then we might also say ed or t. But by pulling these sounds apart, we're helping the kids to begin that process. Now, word building and substitution, I think, is best done when we're actually using the phonic structures, but it does involve us using those skills, that base of phonemic awareness. So switch it or swap. Why substitution is so important is because if you think of words that we then need to spell or read later on, if we have one version of it, we know one structure, let's say the word tooth. By changing that beginning sound, booth, I now know how to read and spell that word. So switch it or swap. I might look at a word and do this really quickly. It doesn't need to be a long activity. I can pull words out of what we're reading. So I'll say glass, change l for r. This is a complex process, grass, but then best, change s for n. Bent, change. Now I can also do nonsense words, and nonsense words uh, I think are great on an assessment purpose, whether it's informal or formal, because it really helps us to see if the kids are getting the concept of it or they're able to do it. It's not just a memorization or being able to see it in their head. It's really being able to do different sounds. So melt. Oh, this has the round. Oh no, sorry. Melt, t for p, melp. Well, not a word as far as I know anyway. Um, and then shorter words as well. Build it is just like it sounds. We're building words, but by using a decodable book, it has a lot of words with the structures that we want to have our kids reading. And so you've got it all right there. I remember thinking I was teaching a lesson and I needed to come up with a series of words that had a specific sound in it. And I thought, "God, why don't I just have these lists?" Well, here you go. You've got a decodable book. It has all of these. Now you could use anything. This is wonder words, but you can use letter tiles, magnet letters. I might say to the kids, we're building all words with ah as our vowel sound. Ah from a, ah. And then I might say t and What did we make? T, tam. So, or I could say it in a different way. I could say, I'm going to have you spell val. How would we spell val? And kids then need to segment it. V, a, l. We can also have kids do this in a partner activity. I would only use this if it was review in that sense as doing it in a partner activity, as one person says a word from a book. Now you have this controlled set of words by using a decodable book. So kids can pick words for their partner that you've already kind of controlled, and then their partner can build it with letter tiles or letter cards. In Express Readers, we have and I know a lot of programs do have something similar to this, but we have these quick keys that go along with each one of the books. And in them, we have word building activity because we do suggest that you feed this into your reading um, schedule or routine because it goes hand in hand with reading. And we give words that then you can use that are similar to the ones that they're reading. But we also do word building switch or add. So it's something where we're taking one word, we're starting with it, and we're just changing one sound. So maybe you have the kids building it in front of them, or you can be doing it by sound. But like when duck feels sick, it's the long E spelled with EE, the vowel team EE. So I might just have them changing one sound in it as we're building it. How would I take beat and turn it into beep? And kids would switch it out. And dictation. This is the last one that I'm going to go into really quickly. Again, having our kids writing um, directly connected to reading because it's all interconnected and it helps our child to retain those letter structures that we're teaching them. So you might have a collection of words that then you pick that have either the focus sound, so in this case, the digraph SH, or what they've already worked on, the blends, and then you've got a great set of words already to do it. It doesn't need to be done in a formal way like this. It can be done with our whiteboards right there, but you have this list of words to pick from. So you will get this menu. It'll be available at the end just as an idea. Because really working on these awareness of sounds and how easily kids manipulate and these links between speech and print builds the foundation for our readers and our writers right there in their reading group. Um, and I did want to mention, I put this in here so I could remember, a lot of our companies, all of these companies that have decodable books also have lots of other activities that you can use, whether they're free or they're a part of it. Dog on a Log, she has some great free printables that have to do with phonemic awareness um, that are easy to access. We have a teacher's platform on Express Readers that has sections on phonological awareness where we have our daily do's, and our daily do's are daily to-do lists with different skills. We do add in phonics immediately to our phonological awareness and our phonemic pieces because we figure why not double up and make that connection for kids. But we do have those available on our platform. Oop, I went right by it. I do want to thank all of the publishers that allowed us to use their books today. An incredible group of educators and parents who have all seen the need to have applicable places for the skills that kids are learning and also to be able to just give our kids books that they can read. We will have the web page live by tomorrow and it'll have the quiz so you can get PD credit. It'll have whatever files were available from this webinar. And we do still have 3 left, and all 3 have special guests in our webinar series. You can always go to the Decodable book section on our webpage and look up the webinar series to either register for the other ones or to see the past ones. So they are all still available. Please make sure you get a free sample of hard copy books. I know a lot of companies do this. It's a great way to really get a feel for what you're looking for your classroom.